If you were born between 1986 and 1990, you grew up rewinding VHS tapes. And then, before you finished high school, you were burning CDs. And then, before you finished college, you were downloading music illegally off Napster. And then, there was a streaming service for everything. You recorded songs off the radio onto a cassette tape, holding your breath during the DJ's intro, finger on the record button. You knew the exact afternoon Napster made that ritual obsolete. You were there for both. You had a Discman that skipped if you breathed wrong. Then an iPod the size of a deck of cards. Then a phone that was all of those things, plus a camera, plus the internet in roughly 9 years, in the middle of the most formative decade of your life. You knew the sound of a dial-up modem, not as a meme people play for laughs, but as the actual sound of your afternoon. You watched Titanic in theaters as a kid. You watched 9/11 happen in a middle school or high school classroom. You graduated into the 2008 financial crisis. You are not an 80s kid. You don't have a real memory of the decade. But you are not quite a 90s kid either. You have spent your entire life sitting in a category that culture has never fully named. Psychology has. When you're in a room full of 80s kids, you recognize the references, but you're always slightly off. You were there at the very end of something, not in the middle of it. When you're with 90s kids, the same thing happens in reverse. They talk about dial-up internet as childhood. You remember dial-up internet as high school. What most people in this birth window share is a very specific psychological tension. A sense that they never fully belong to one era or the other. You have parts of two identities and spent your entire formative years learning how to hold both at once. The 1986 to 1990 cohort experienced something that no other birth window before or after will ever experience in precisely the same way. You had a fully analog childhood, real boredom, long summers with nothing to do, being genuinely unreachable. Your brain built its foundational architecture in that environment. And then, during your adolescence and early adulthood, that world was almost entirely replaced. The social structures changed, the communication changed, the economy changed, the technology changed in a single compressed window, your 20s. Developmental psychologists call this a cohort effect. What is specific and unusual about the 1986 to 1990 cohort is that they underwent two distinct cohort effects in a single lifetime. Their childhood wired them for patience, for in-person connection, for self-directed boredom. Then their early adulthood rewired them for speed, for digital communication, for instant access, for permanent connectivity. Most generations get one. This cohort absorbed both. In 2011, economists published a study that tracked how early economic experience permanently shapes financial psychology. People who experienced economic collapse during formative years don't adjust and recover the way older people do. The experience changes their relationship to risk and to financial security at a structural level. For the 1986 to 1990 cohort, that collapse was 2008. You were 18 to 22 years old. Your first job, your first apartment, the first time you had tried to build anything that looked like adult life, and the floor dropped. Research on recession cohorts consistently shows that those who enter adulthood during an economic contraction earn less for a decade or more. The initial setback compounds. The caution compounds. Your relationship to money and stability was calibrated by the specific conditions of the moment you became an adult. That calibration is not irrational. It is the most rational possible response to what actually happened to you. Here is what has not been said clearly enough about being born in this specific window. You speak 2 languages. You are fluent in an analog world and a digital one because you were required to learn both from scratch in real time. You know what boredom actually feels like. You also know how to adapt faster than almost any other cohort because adaptation was the dominant experience of your entire adolescence. You watched the world your childhood was built on get replaced quickly in your 20s. You were not given a mourning period for the version of the world that ended. The timeline just moved forward, and you moved with it. You are not the forgotten generation. You are the generation that learned to carry 2 worlds at once, one of the most adaptable, most self-sufficient, most quietly resilient cohorts that modern psychology has documented. Nobody handed you that. You built it in the gap between everything. If this described your generation more accurately than anything you've read before, subscribe. The next video goes somewhere your brain is already going after watching this one. And if you're the kind of person who grew up figuring things out before anyone gave you a map, you already know you want to see where it leads.